Hello and welcome to the culmination of the FE7 Buy Our Units co-op playthrough. In this video, Teagan and I go through all the units we used and assess and tier their performance throughout the run. Before we start, I would just like to once again thank the people who support me in making content like this and everything else on the channel by backing on Patreon. The support is greatly appreciated, and for more information on how you can back for just £1 a month, and the benefits you get from doing so, check the link in the description. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Yeah, this is we're going to go through all the units. I guess we already sort of discussed how they performed prior to the final map, but we're going to actually rank them based on their performance throughout the playthrough, obviously somewhat relative to their cost as well, but generally just how much we feel they sort of helped us out, I think, throughout the run, how much we appreciated having them for what we paid for them, I think is a good way to put it. There will be favoritism, because I think throughout the course of the run, some units have very much won our hearts. But we'll try to be as unbiased as possible.
Yeah. I just noticed my mic did not capture the first part thing I just said, but Jono just said it basically as well enough. Yeah. So once again, yeah, this is taking into account the whole run, both Lin mode and Hector mode. Basically what their contributions were, not just end game contributions, mind you, like the whole game.
Yeah, throughout the whole playthrough.
That's
and...
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was an interesting run. There was a lot of ups and downs for a lot of units in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun.
I think we should just get this one out of the way.
Yes, I think Heath was by far the best unit throughout this run. As soon as we got him, he performed fine on Genesis, and like
it's asking a lot. That's asking a lot of Heath for Genesis. Like you're the
but he did well on the desert. He did well on pretty much everything after Genesis. Mm-hmm. He was pretty much the unit we could put in the middle of everything, and everything would come out of it dead. He was even like right up to the final map. He was incredibly crucial. Final boss, he was incredibly crucial. All around an absolute star player.
He capped all the offensive stats. He capped
He capped strength.
He capped skill.
He capped strength twice.
Yeah. He capped skill, which is huge. That was a difference maker for the final boss. Speed, capped speed. Like he's not known to be a fast unit most of the time, and yeah, just had a monstrous HP stat of 6.
Yeah, that HP was actually huge. I think we did give him an angelic robe, but even still, like, it was so big. The fact we could pretty much just send him into archers without the Delphi shield and still be confident he would hold his own. Yeah. He also made, like, really good use of a lot of the really strong tools we got throughout the game, the Brave Lance and the Rex Faster at the end and things like that. Like, he was just very important throughout the entire run, I think.
And mind you, like, this is a run where I think we really fumbled with Pure Waters and the Barrier Staff. So if we had, like, better control of those, he would be a lot better.
I mean, I don't think there's any better example of that than going into the final map without any Pure Waters.
Yeah.
That was a bit, especially after we bought them for the final map, that was a bit of a mistake. I'm happy to leave Heath there, and I think we could go on for a long time.
Do you have an idea who number 2 is?
I do. I have an opinion on who 2 is.
Okay. Care to elaborate?
Who would you put there first?
I'm thinking Lin.
I am not opposed to that. Yes. She was incredibly consistent.
I'll put her there.
I think she's A. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I think Heath is in a league of his own. But she was incredibly consistent. She never we gave her stuff, but she never really needed stuff. Like, we gave her the angelic robe and the energy ring because she was the best user of them in Lin mode. Mm-hmm. It's not like we gave them her and okay, you can argue like maybe someone like Kent lost out, but Lin made great use of them.
Yeah. It's the Jill argument.
Yeah, it is. It's the Radiant Dawn Jill thing, but like she made great use of those items. She was a great combat unit very, very consistently. And outside of those Lin mode items, which weren't overly contested. Again, you can argue Kent.
Yeah.
She didn't really get much. She got hammer and stuff use for the Manikati. That's it. Like, didn't really need much in her favor. She kind of just killed things very reliably.
I think the Manikati was the correct choice for that point in time. Like,
yes. I agree. I don't know what else we would have used it on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we used it on a couple of brave weapons at the end, but they didn't need it at the time. I don't even know if we had them. I don't think we did. The only other choice would have been if we'd have kept the Wolf Bale active, I think. But even then, I think Manikati still might have been the play.
yeah. Did you have a different opinion on who number 1 was, or you're
Number 1 is definitely
or
me.
number 2
is
number 2?
Yeah. So I think Lynn is a very solid candidate for number 2. I think my other, I think I possibly would lean towards Lynn for the very obvious reason, but my other candidate would be Geets.
That's bold,
who,
but I can
as
see
soon
it.
as we got was just like, if it wasn't for Heath, he would have been unparalleled as a combat unit. Like, I don't think anybody else really performed to his standards. Not with the level of consistency that he did. He just did so much damage. He, again, similar to Heath, had a ridiculous HP pool, which just let him pretty much face tank anything. The big knock against him is obviously his availability. Wasn't around for the longest period of time. But the other thing I would give in Geet's favor, compared to a lot of other units on this list, is he cost us 3 points. Now, you can argue he took some investment onto other units, but again, I don't think Lynn required any effort from us. I don't think Hector required any effort from us. And Eliwood got pretty close before we had to start. Had to put maybe like 3 or 4 levels into him that were actually wouldn't have happened naturally in a run of this context, I would say.
Yeah.
But for a 3-point unit, Geets was an absolute standout. Like, if he'd have been, say, let's say we'd have got like a 6-point unit like Harken instead, we'd have had to drop somebody like Gee. And we wouldn't have been able to, or we could have dropped Dart at the time. I don't think we would have done that. But yeah, I think like for a 3-point unit, Geets' performance was incredibly good. And again, right up until the final boss, incredibly strong combat unit, contributed incredibly well just from a combat perspective. Doesn't have the same utility as some of the other units on this list, like Heath with rescue dropping and things like that. But all in all, I think pretty clear cut.
Yeah,
One of our standout.
I wasn't even
units.
thinking about his cost as a 3-pointer, which I think that does probably put him there as well because he was just so cheap. But like this other thing that makes him really cheap was that just he got no investment, essentially.
Yes.
We didn't give him stat boosters. We didn't give him we gave him Brave Bow, but even then we didn't even give it to him all the time.
I was gonna say a lot of the time he was like a bit like Hector kept taking the Brave Axe, Rebecca kept taking the Brave Bow. Like he didn't even get his best items in a lot of the time. The man was killing things with a longbow. Like he took nothing from us.
Yeah. And like again, he rolled. I think he had a below average performance on his join map as well, and he still did his job.
He was imperative to that chapter. Like we didn't get the village if we didn't get that. Like yeah. I think you're right. I think that probably was his worst chapter, apart from maybe the time we got him killed.
Yeah, Cog was problematic, but still.
Yeah, like he did suffer from his lack of speed against those Valkyries on Cog, but
that's a hard chapter. All right, it's like that's his genesis.
But there was also a reason we put him in the position we did, because it's not like he was like in a cluster of our units and got picked off. We sent him off on his own into a thing he couldn't handle, which there was a reason why we chose him for that, right? Because he was such a good unit that he was one of our only candidates, really.
Again, I do kind of prefer Lynn because just again, Lynn was there for Genesis. She was there during like Dragon's Gate.
One thing we didn't actually mention about Lynn, and I do just want to bring this up before we move too far away from her, is her resistance was actually crucial.
The resistance. Her resistance was good. She got the Ursula kill, which
she got the Ursula kill. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of too. She had a lot of standout moments. Lynn was really good, but that's something I don't want to go like underappreciated about her. It was Like, yeah, she was quick. Yeah, she killed things. She could take those stave hits, or she could take like those magic hits
Like,
when we needed her to.
Yeah, I don't want to drag on Lynn too far, but there's a difference between her and like, because sometimes they're similar,
Yes.
but like, yeah, the resistance stat does matter so much for her.
Yes.
Especially during late game, especially during COG, especially during Battle Before Dawn, especially during Victory or Death. That like,
Yes.
Yeah. No, she was great, and bow axes as well, long bows. Yeah.
Yes, that became really big when she got it. Being able to use bows just gave her a 2-range option, which was really nice. I think there is one more unit who probably rounds out our A tier.
Which 5-point unit?
I think it's Foreigner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if I won't shut up about her, but look, COG was a big play. She got slapped, but even then, like, she did her job. She, like, that's 4 Lunas that were off the map. Victory or Death was also just, I could have isolated that clip and you could have told me that she was the best unit in the game, in our team. But
even when she was like slept on COG, like she was keeping like 6 or 7 units busy, just stood around, including a couple of Valkyries just stood around her, hitting her. Like, she played a really big role.
Yeah. Fairly cheap as well. Well, on the draft, not the 20,000 theme, but yeah, I think it would be foolish not to put like her amongst them because just how instrumental she was for like those chapters and Battle for Dawn as well, and Night of Farewells.
I will also say she had 0 downtime. Like, she grinded up on her own merit to being able to like promote at a high level on her joining chapter and just performed from there. There wasn't even like Heath still performed well on Genesis. Heath still performed well on his joining chapter.
Yeah.
But Foreigner didn't even have like that slight dip. She just started off very good.
Yeah.
I think the only real like thing we could say against her is she got a lot of resources.
She got
like,
a lot of
she got Aether's drops, she got boots, she got 2 body rings, like she got a lot of resources. I think she got a speed wing as well.
She was babied. I mean, we even missed the second speed wing, but
memes aside, like, we needed her to do what she was doing. Like, we didn't have another unit who we could just throw into a horde of mages and kill them all like we did on Victory or Death.
Again, like what we had.
It doesn't matter what we did to Heath, he wasn't fulfilling that role.
No. Like what we said with the thing that makes her unique, and I think this is the reason why she's in A tier, is that, like, obviously, but is that she was our mage tank. And when we desperately needed the mage tank, like
because whilst Lynn had the resistance stat, Lynn doesn't have 1-2 range, which is crucial to being a mage tank.
Yeah.
She was really good. She also had all the same flying utility as Heath does and all of that stuff, which played a lot of impact in several important places that's probably lost to memory now, but yeah. That's really, really stellar from the moment she joined. I wasn't expecting that level of performance from her. I think that might be bumping her up a bit in my mind. Like, I thought she'd be good. I thought she'd be serviceable. I wasn't expecting her to just fly around killing all the mages.
I think you severely underrate her. Like,
well, there is also like the same issue as Geet, right? The join time is
the join time's bad. The join time's bad. Like, you wish you had her during Genesis or whatever, but oh well. Now, I'm actually a little fumbled on this B tier because I
know who the next unit is. I just don't know whether they're A or B. I think they're B. I could be convinced otherwise.
Are we thinking Sarah now?
Yes.
I almost want to put her in A.
I'm not opposed to this
because, look, I think one, she's better than Urk. She was far more crucial than Urk. Just being the healer in the early game is big. Chapter 12, I don't remember which take we did where she where she was just dodge tanking.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that like you just need.
But she was also doing it like as far back as Lin mode as well,
Yeah.
like the ballista chapter in Lin mode. She was dodge tanking that, like, yeah.
And then I don't remember if she had to take a bolting from Sonya. I know she did from the Stella.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just and then 21 speed, like what the hell?
She was so quick. It was actually really useful. Like, she could actually eat hits when we needed her to. But obviously the main reason she's here is stave usage.
Stave.
I don't think we get through that early game without Sarah, which is why I'm not opposed to her being A tier.
Yeah.
Even if we had, like, let's say we picked Priscilla instead, who was 3 points more expensive. Because there's no way we were picking Priscilla and Sarah, and personally, I think if we didn't have the recruitment issue with Priscilla, I probably would have leaned that way.
I still want to. I'm still trying to investigate that, but that also.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I think I probably would have gone with Priscilla. But chapter 12, 13, and 13X would have been brutal. Like, without Sarah there. Mm-hmm. Like, impossibly hard. Like, for some of those 13X was really difficult anyway. Without a healer, that would have been terrible. So, again, especially for a 5-point unit, it's something that apart from, I think this A tier actually kind of has in common, but they were all very well, they all performed very well for their cost.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to describe is that these were great, like, you know, great for the cost and like just good overall in the gameplay.
Yeah.
Now I don't know who goes next because I think either way, like if we were to put her in B or A, I think she was the next one that behind.
Yeah,
Freya.
I think she's fine with A because we don't know who comes after her.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to put her in A, right? That's a tier gap.
Yeah.
If we don't know who comes after her, there's a big gap there. That's a tier gap. That's fine for her to be an A.
Because there are units here that I am kind of okay. Like maybe it might be.
I think there is a 3 that is the next like sort of hack, which would be for me like Guy, Matthew, and Hector, not necessarily in that order.
Yeah,
but those are the next 3 who stand out for me.
I'm just gonna plop them there because I know I know it's one of these 3.
Yeah.
Hector.
Also, just as a quick aside, what are we doing about Merlinus? Is he actually being tiered, or is he just here because we had him?
I think he can be tiered if we just want him. He'll be last. We'll do him last just to be funny.
Okay.
But like so these units are vastly different from each other. Well, I guess maybe not Matthew and Guy, but still like this guy is a wall.
Mm-hmm.
He did a lot of things in the early game that just are not replicable or whatever. Can't talk anymore. And then just overall, like solid combat unit. Just basically Lin diet. I don't want to say diet Lin because there were points for him that Lin didn't have.
Yeah.
But
I feel bad for Guy not being in A tier because I feel like it's almost our fault. Yeah. Because I feel like we took too long to click on to how well he was actually performing. Like, I think we could have had much more use out of Guy throughout the game if we'd have realized earlier what he was actually doing on the player phase. Like, that damage he was outputting, those kills we were securing.
We weren't even really... There was a lot of problems Guy faced because of of player error. One of them actually is not getting a secret shops, especially the one on Dragon's Gate where we can get more killing edges for him. That was also big, and then we didn't know he was going to be as good as he was, because then like a chapter like say chapter 16, the Lin like reunion chapter, we could have got more kills with him there, gave him more XP. And then he can snowballed. Yeah,
there are a lot of chapters where we shoved him off in a corner to clean up some reinforcements that comes in, and I think I brought this up when we did the unit review prior to the final chapter, but the Dread Isle is the one that springs to mind to me, where we just shoved him in a corner to kill pirates that spawn. Like that's just sort of what he became for us. And then sort of I think it was around the Isadora chapter that we sort of realized, oh wait, he's actually just murdering things. Like,
well,
yeah.
again, going back to that, like, I think a huge idea that I came up with in the run is that, like, cleanup is huge. And Guy was the cleanup unit that, like, we need just these enemies dealt with before stuff gets out of hand. He can do that.
But I think the thing that really impressed me about Guy, and the reason why I think he's definitely sort of in this clump of units, is we gave him nothing.
No.
Like, he was fighting against us to perform well for most of this run. We had no expectations, and we treated him as such. And he still became incredibly good.
This is a very beautiful sentiment here. It's this is why we play Fire Emblem.
Yeah, he honestly was so impressive during this run. It was, yeah, I don't know, I've developed a new appreciation for the character. I'm happy we used him, especially considering if you go back to our draft when we were like, well, we drafted Guy, this was probably a terrible pick. Like, we quite frankly couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah.
For a 3-point unit as well, like, his performance was excellent throughout the game, even if we didn't let him shine for a lot of the time.
I know we like this might just because we're talking about it. I'm willing to put him in the front, but we have to discuss these two as well. But I'm
Matthew
starting.
is such a hard unit to judge.
Yeah, I'm starting to like have doubts about Matthew being at the top. I still think it is these three next.
He has to be in this tier purely for thief utility alone.
Thief utility. And just, you have to remember, he was the best combat unit.
For solid. He was good in Lin mode. Like, he performed well in Lin mode. But like those early Hector mode chapters, like pretty much everything from chapter 11, because like he was dodge tanking. I can't remember the guy's name. The chapter 12 boss at one point for us. Like he was comfortably solid during that period of time. Chapter 13, obviously 13x, we left him to just solo an entire wall of bandits. He broke his sword on them and then stole a vulnerary on the final turn. And then chapter 14 was sort of where the whole Matthew Zabes combat unit joke started.
Yeah.
And he probably wasn't our literal best combat unit, but he was genuinely a very good combat unit at that point in time.
And again, you had to, when you take those into mind, like we were starved in the early game. The early game, I was questioning our team's like competence.
Yes.
And Matthew was just there. And honestly, like the vulnerary skills do add up, I think. Because
well, it's not just the vulnerary skills as well. Like you've got the angelic robe in Lin mode. We've got things like the silver card, the guiding ring, everything, every chest he opened throughout the run.
Yeah.
All incredible. Like the boots were thanks to him. The Delphi shield was thanks to him. Like these are all things we wouldn't have had if we didn't draft Matthew.
Yeah.
And can you imagine this game without the Delphi shield?
No.
That would have been very difficult. Boots, Urk's guiding ring or Sarah's guiding ring, depending on who we'd have promoted first. In actuality, we probably would have promoted Sarah later, which would have hurt us even more.
Yeah, I do
no
think...
silver card?
Oh, silver card was also big. I do think he belongs here. I'm
like... I think this is really hard to order.
It's so hard. It's so hard because Hector's also like, imagine not having to worry about physical attacks, and just getting dinged. Because I'm thinking, obviously he just kited enemies from in chapter 16. I don't remember how well he was in chapter 17. That's a big difference maker, because if he was just getting dinged by the nomads or whatever, and we were just I don't remember what our crunch was. I don't know if he was taking hits or if we were just like trying to make it towards the Knight's Crest.
Yeah.
Because that does make a difference. I think he was also really good for the Portal Dawn choke as well.
Yep. Also the there are so many maps we could look at where he was just like taking so many. So, like, there were, if we went back through this run, almost all of our early game would have been Hector stood as a wall while everyone else kills things.
Yeah.
And we can't ignore that wall contribution. Like, maps would have been borderline impossible without him. And he was free.
Yeah. And
he did have some issues, that being said.
Yeah,
I think amongst these units, he had some issues. His low move made him quite low contribution in the late game, I feel.
Yes.
He definitely fell off. And he stopped contributing as much from a combat perspective. For sure.
Yeah.
His accuracy
was atrocious.
A lot. The one thing that's possibly in his favor is I think the more memorable moments of his accuracy being bad
Yeah.
were funny moments that didn't really matter. Like when he was just killing like random enemies, like when we were getting the Merlinus village, it didn't really matter how long he took or something like that. But there were definitely moments where it did, and that was a problem. Also, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think we need another tier. So I think we make an S+, we put Heath in it, and we move everyone up.
I'm not opposed. Because I think we might have.
I see 3 divisions of units of the ones we have left.
Oh no.
But yeah, like all 3 of those units, Hector, Matthew, and Guy, they had their drawbacks, sure. Like, even when Guy was shining, he was a one-range bot, apart from the Light Brand, which actually did contribute quite well. Even if it was a bit of a joke at some points. I kind of wish we hadn't wasted so much of it, like, lol, we'll hit them with the Light Brand, like, because it actually came in quite handy later on. But like, Guy was locked to one range, he was low move, and he couldn't really enemy phase at all, which I think is why he's quite distinctly behind Lin. Like, if it was a limited deployment chapter map, I'm taking Lin over Guy most times. And he doesn't, even though his combat was impressive, it doesn't compare to units like Heath, Geats, Foreigner. And Matthew's combat obviously fell off a cliff at like a certain point, and he spent the entire game stat locked. But all 3 of them are very good. I think.
Do you think there should be anyone else in A tier?
I think you can make a case for a couple, but no.
I don't, actually. But I think I know who's going to be the next one up.
I think there are... Yeah, I think... So, what do we think about the A-tier order? Do we have a...
I almost want to say unordered, but I do think maybe Guy deserves to be, like, in front, because...
all 3 of these units did so much for us. Like, it's hard. I think maybe Matthew goes on top. I don't know. I think I'm trying to imagine this run without the silver card, and I think it's
or double like mage promotion. I think like see, the thing with Hector was it may have been overkill sometimes because he could have. And then of course
I think Hector also fell off really hard,
and he missed a lot. And the thing is, like, I commend Guy a lot for cleanup. Hector could not clean up. He would make more of a mess.
Well, the other thing is, like, look at a chapter like Genesis, right? Incredibly few units. We only had 7 units that we could use. What did Hector do?
Hector broke... I think that's a bad... Hector broke walls. He had to... He had to use the Brave Axe. And that's...
He did.
That's big. Like, it was unreliable, but he's the only unit that could do it like reasonably well, and like you had
he did contribute on that chapter. You're right. I'm probably being a bit unfair, but I think, like, if you look at a unit like Lin, Guy, Heath, Sarah, even Urk, they had blinders on that chapter. Like, they really pulled out performances. I think Hector was fine. Like, I think in those clutch moments, especially like later in the game, Hector stopped being that guy. He was just
if you compare, let's say Battle Before Dawn, I think is a better example. Hector was not doing anything in Battle Before Dawn.
Yeah.
He was just sitting like...
But he did something very important on Battle Before Dawn that forced us to replay an hour and a half of map.
Yeah, because he needs his Brave Axe to do shit, and...
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, like, that's not... Like, yeah. Whereas, like, he was busy doing, like, his thief stuff. He was a very good cleanup unit on that map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this order is correct.
I think this is correct too. I think we can't like underrate Hector's early game, but
No,
I
we
think out
can't.
of these units, he had the biggest drop off and the most flaws.
Yeah, but that's why he's in this tier.
Yes. Okay.
I think it's very obvious that Eric has to go next because
Yes, and I think Lowen goes right with him.
yeah, Erg, you could argue, but
I think so too. Yes.
like, okay, like, but I think the biggest argument you can make for him is second restore. That's like the only thing you can say, and that's huge. That makes a very considerable difference. But I think if you take it as a whole, what we're trying to rank and stuff like that, as a 7-point, he was 7 point. Yeah, as a 7-point unit, I was underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed with him throughout.
I think he was
the most
very good
run.
early on. I think he was. I think you're underselling how much he contributed early. Because I think he actually was very important. Like, especially in terms of like killing armors.
Yeah.
I'm thinking chapter 15 in particular. He was pretty vital, to be honest. He was also like one of our most reliable 1-2 range users. Lowen wasn't doubling. Hector wasn't hitting anything and wasn't doubling. Like, he was a very reliable 1-2 range who we could actually use to get rid of most things. He was also doubling a lot at that point in time. I think the thing that makes it really weird to judge is he had a huge role shift when he promoted. He went from being a good combat unit to a staff bot. And as a staff bot, he was worse than Sarah. So it makes it weird to judge him because he went through this huge dynamic shift in what we wanted from him as a unit. And then we kind of like still tried to treat him like a combat unit a bit, which might have been a bit unfair by us, I guess. Maybe we should have recognized that if we're going to not use him as a combat unit for 4 chapters in a row, he's not going to keep up. But I kind of thought that was the point of Lin mode. Like, he would use that Lin mode head start to persist through that period of being a bit of a staff bot, through like Genesis and maps like that, and then he could bounce back. And that just never happened. That bounce back never happened. He just was a staff bot from that point in time. He did pick up some kills. The Geats map, I know he picked up a couple and things like that, but he never hit that stride again. Like, and that was a little bit disappointing. He was also incredibly frail.
Yeah. So his best map was Dragon's Gate. That's when he was like he looked like Pent for a second.
Yes.
But you have to again 7 points, and he had Lin mode.
Yeah, I think that's the big disappointment, really. Like, you could maybe argue he performed reasonably, which is probably why he's in B tier, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think we expected that Lin mode head start to see him through that staff bot period, and then he could bounce back and come back swinging and still be a good combat unit. And he just didn't. He was just a second healer, and we needed a second healer. You know, he wasn't just a second.
I think like the only arguments I can make for him for A is he had to like basically. It's funny because like it's a story that he's Sarah's escort in Lin mode, but he was basically just escorting Sarah to make sure like she could still do staff stuff.
Yeah, he was a solid early game unit. I think he performed well.
Yeah.
But he performed as well as I think I expected him to early game, especially with the Lin mode investment. Yeah. And then his combat just never really came back. Or when it did, it was sort of like it came back for like a map and then disappeared again.
I think he got lucky a lot of times. You get the YMCA's and stuff.
He did get a lot of crits, but at the same time, like, we did need a second healer. We needed that second restore staff. Like, we needed that unit. So you can't go below this.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. I know. Like, I don't think there's an argument for low and above him. And I don't think these units go above him either. But I was just fairly disappointed with him. Like, the fact that Kent was better than him for Battle for Dawn was just silly.
I don't think that was an Urk problem.
That's not. It was not Urk, but like
I don't think that was at all an Urk. I think whichever unit we sent to the left, unless they had 8 move and potentially Kanto, they would have done the same thing. It could have been Hector, it could have been Matthew, it could have been Guy, it could have been Lynn, it could have been anyone. We just happened to send up. But yeah.
Yeah, so weird. And then Lowen, I think, is just probably the easiest unit here. Just 15 defense, 8 move.
Yeah, he
with Kanto and
contributed well in the early game. He was important to that early game. He had a lot of really good maps there, and then he became a bulky paladin who was sometimes fast enough to not get doubled, which helped him out, especially in comparison to Hector, who was a little bit slower for a lot of the game.
Yeah.
But he couldn't kill things, so he didn't keep up. And then we stopped using him as much, and we ended up not even taking him into the final
There's like arguments you could be made. Actually, no, he just had way too slow of a speed. There's no... Like, it's the Brave Lances like that elevates like these... She didn't even use it, but like him, and he obviously we're not giving it to him because he would just get doubled with it.
Yeah, I think the big problem is like the things we needed Urk to tank, he couldn't kill.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't kill them on the counter. Like we needed Farina to tank mages, and she could kill them on the counter. We needed Heath to tank units, and he could kill them on the counter.
These two units kind of didn't do that.
Yeah, right. Like especially Lowen, who like when we needed him to tank units, he would tank the unit, kind of like what Hector was doing for us in the early game, except for Lowen, it sort of never really. It was never really on the same level. Yeah,
well, like when Hector does it, you're like, oh, okay, you just.
Yeah.
I can just leave Hector there. When Lowen does, he does it for one unit, which is it's crucial. He does it for one unit, but then you're like, oh, I get the men staff out.
Like when Hector was taking dinks, Lowen was taking like 3s and 4s, and it like
it adds up.
Yeah, it adds up. That being said, a lot of really good rescue utility. 8 move Kanto was good.
You got the village. You got the village, the money village.
He did get the money village.
The finger thing means the taxes.
He was a good unit. Lowen. We probably gave him a bit of a hard time, but like because he wasn't an offensive performance. But
not to be harsh to him, but yeah, he doesn't. He should be happy he's not dipping lower here because.
Yeah, I think he had a really solid early game. And we really can't we can't ignore that. Like he was important early on. He played a very important role, and he was one of our better early game units. But like, he just sort of in the late game, it was like, oh, he rescue drops people and he eats a hit occasionally. Like, you're not getting higher than B if that's your late game performance, I'm afraid.
Now, does Rebecca go? I think Rebecca's C. I don't think she's here. I don't know how many units
Rebecca's not D tier.
I don't know how many units you're gonna put in D tier, but
I only have 1 unit in D tier.
Okay.
Personally.
And
maybe 2, but I don't know.
Now, the real controversial thing is Kent above or below her?
It's tough. Kent is C tier. He's not D tier. He
can't.
No. The thing is, we've got to try and set aside Kent's performance from how disappointed we are in Kent's performance. Because
you know what this is? Is it
what?
The 1 point unit versus the 9 point unit?
Yes. Because the thing is, Kent should be like, I think when we came into this run, Kent should have been at least an A tier unit.
I'd argue he should have been an S.
Yes.
Especially with Lin mode.
Yes. And
I was expecting
not even close.
I was expecting this guy to be Marcus too. Like,
yes,
we get him, we can just turn our brain off for chapter 17 or whatever, or, and like talk about how excited we were going to be for Engage. Instead, we're just like moaning and slapping our foreheads.
It wasn't even close. Like, he was from quite an early stage not one of our better units. Like, even like Port of Badon. Like,
I don't even think we deployed. Did we deploy him for that?
I don't think so. Which is shocking. That's
like, I know it's a map where you usually grind units, but like, you're 2 chapters in and you're already on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. And it's not because you're too good, like you're Marcus. No, it's because I can't find a use for you.
Yeah, I don't know what you're bringing to this map. And he hit that snowball that every unit hates. If you stop killing, you stop earning EXP. And he stopped killing. And there is no way we were babying a paladin. That's ridiculous. A paladin who already got 9 levels of free EXP and a promotion item. Like, he simply couldn't sustain himself. And for a 9-point unit, that's just not good enough.
Whereas, again, to get away from the depressing shit, like Rebecca, I enjoyed every bit of contribution she did.
Yes.
Chapter 12, we needed her, essentially.
Yes.
A lot of just her early chips, like chapter 13, I'm sure she also did like help out as well. Like, you have to respect the Rebecca contributions when you choose to use her. I know a lot of people just send her to the secret book village and call it a day, but
yeah,
in the context of like this run, in like chapter 12, like chapter 12 is just so big for us. Because it's just the
her contributions in chapter 12 were huge. I think like chapter 13, I'm sure she picked off some of those pegs.
I'm pretty sure she picked off pegs in like 14 as well, like etc. etc.
Yeah, 15 she was dinking things over walls. Like she just did like small contributions for very little effort.
Yeah,
like she wasn't a stellar unit. That's why she's not in A tier or S tier or anything like that. But we probably deployed her a couple of times and it was a bit silly. We probably gave her a couple of kills that were a bit silly. But we didn't actually give her anything really in terms of like stat boosters or major resources that I can think of. Her big weapons like the Brave Bow she was competing with for geeks.
Who doesn't need it, really?
Yeah. But like, he still just helped.
There was something to say that we maybe I could have tried doing something with her on Genesis, but it probably wasn't worth it.
Yeah, she has a problem. She's very frail.
Yeah.
He's 2 range only.
She had no HP as well. It really does suck.
Yeah. But for a 1-point unit, she contributed way more than I expected for a 1-point unit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is almost like you say, directly in contrast to Kent, who contributed way less than I expected for a 9-point unit. I think if we were judging them purely on their performance, Kent would be above her.
Kent, I think for sure, but
in terms of their performance for what they took from us, Rebecca is higher.
This is a dumb hypothetical, but let me just say this: like, what if we didn't draft Kent, all the XP, or like we could have got. Obviously, you can't get Florina with, unless you got rid of her or whatever. But just for the sake of humor, if we didn't draft Kent or Kent didn't steal stuff, he could have got more EXP and could have snowballed. Sarah, that depends, but like.
Well, even if Kent was a 9-point unit, but there are genuinely things in there where I'm looking like I'd rather have had Fiora, I'd rather have had Harkin.
Yeah, we could have got Harkin, you could have Harkin and Athos.
Hawkeye.
Yeah.
You could have had Hawkeye for Genesis. That would have been huge. For 1 point, I can't look at another unit in that tier and go, I wish we hadn't picked Rebecca. In fact, I can't imagine getting through that early game without another early game unit who would have cost more. I don't think Rebecca was particularly replaceable.
Yeah.
Whereas, I wish we had picked someone else instead of Kent.
Yeah. Because, again, it goes back to, Rebecca was 1 point.
Yeah, Rebecca was 1 point.
And again, in the context of this style of run, we're not. It's not like she's taking up someone else's deployment slot. Maybe on, I don't know, pirate ship or berserker. Obviously, she did, but like.
Port of Badon, I think we brought her along as well.
In a normal run, like she's probably the worst because we're deploying her over, everyone else. But in this run where we're limited to this cast, I think she was more than fine for what what it took from us.
I have the be all and end all question for you.
Yes.
There was a 9-point unit who we didn't pick. It was Oswin.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have had Oswin or Kent?
I would rather have Oswin.
Yes.
Oswin's biggest problem would be that he takes the thing away from Lowen, but Oswin won. Okay, so that means that Chapter 12 would have been easy mode. Chapter 13 would have been easy mode. 13X would have been easy mode. 14 would have been easy mode. 15 is a little hard because his mobility sucks, but like still, pirate ship would have been easy mode. And if he manages a snowball, he just becomes Hector, but he has a resistance stat as well.
Yeah.
Oswin, I think, does have the capacity to be best armor knight in the series. That's going on a tangent, but like it would be more than what he was doing. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think like if we go to the units below Kent in cost, like Hawkeye and Kent and things like that, like the big thing Kent has over them is availability, right? He joins a lot earlier, but I don't think he did enough in that time for that to actually be relevant. Like I'd have rather had Pent or Hawkeye or Fiora or Harken than Kent.
Yeah.
Like, so for that reason, I think that's why Kent is below Rebecca.
Yeah.
We could have had a lot more for what we got instead of Kent, and it would have been better. The same can't be said for it. The final tier.
Okay, like, let's do that.
Yes, that it just is.
Ellie Wood. I cannot think of a contribution that I was really more than grateful for. He just kind of got kills whenever.
Actually, I'm just thinking about it. Right, you say that he was important on Chapter 12.
No,
just by virtue of being there. Chapter 13X, the Merlin's Paralogue, crucial. He held that right-hand bridge pretty well. We swapped him out on the final turn for Guy, but until the final turn, he held that bridge on his own. He chugged a few.
Okay, fine.
He actually, Chapter 15, he held that left wall, the little hole in the wall. He had small contributions.
Okay, I'm being too harsh.
Yeah, I think he was. He had moments where I was very grateful to have him.
I forgot. Chapter 15 was actually I forgot that was actually a huge scene for him.
Mm-hmm. Like, we did have to feed him kills because of the geese requirement, and that's absolutely fair. He also wasn't very good. He also grew quite poorly with that investment we had to give him. He missed out on a lot of points of speed, which maybe he could have contributed better. But he did help for several periods of several maps. And that early game would have been rough without Eliwood.
Yeah. My just biggest, I guess, begrudgance with Eliwood is that I think of all the characters, and we just talked about how much this guy was a fucking lobotomy of a package. Of all the characters, in this in here, including Dart, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Dismal contribution past his prime.
Yes.
Dismal.
Past chapter I don't know, Port of Badon. Yeah. I don't think he did anything of relevance. He might have picked up the odd kill here or there, but I don't think he really helped.
Yeah.
But he did have his moment where I think he was very good.
completely dismal in terms of like what do I do with this guy. I think we had like the 4-use rapier on him. From like from the Dryad Isle onwards, and we just left it on him and did not.
It wasn't for a lack of trying as well. I kept trying to say, like, can anyone kill this armor knight with his rapier? Can he kill this cavalier? And it was just no. Yeah, his late game performance was by far the worst on our team, including Rebecca. Like, not even comparative to cost or anything like that. His late game performance was the worst on our team.
Yeah.
And the investment we gave him to get Geats only got us Geats. It got us nothing for Elliewood.
No. And I think
that being said, he did kill Uhai.
Yeah, he did kill Uhai, which I think might be the reason why he's not D. Because he killed Uhai, and he also did the rescue drops for.
He did actually do some rescue drops after he got promoted. That is true. He did do some relevant rescue drop stuff after he got promoted. It was short-lived, but he did do them. That is fair.
Okay, and then finally D for the dart.
D for disappointing.
D for disappointing. Just no. I think my perception of that this guy's a glass cannon might be ignoring the purpose of being a good unit in FE7, where it's a heavily enemy phase game. And I know we use units that are player phase heavy, but in the context of FE7, you need the bulk. You need to actually survive. And we go fully into like when we use Rebecca, we're fully aware that she can die very easily. Lynn could die very easily if we're not careful. This guy, he has to go in. Yet he has no durability whatsoever to survive, and that's across the 3 defensive stats. And I know speed crosses over with offensive, but it's also a defensive stat in terms of you get doubled. That doubles the damage amount you're getting taken. And I also
want to raise another point to just go alongside what you've just said. We know Lynn, Guy, Rebecca are player phase units.
Yes.
So we send them in, and as an answer to that, we can rescue them out. Because they have low con.
Yeah.
Dart has 10 con unpromoted. He has 13 con promoted. It's ridiculous. Like, he's a big guy. He's not an easy guy to rescue drop around. He's low move as well, so it's not like you can pick him up and take him forward, drop him off. Like, he's just not what we needed.
No. And he's... I can see in the controlled environment of maybe a draft race. Like, yeah, there's a reason why he's the 4th carry, I think now. I don't know if they found someone better. But in a more sporadic playthrough like this, it's just not reliable. Like, he did not get the stats I needed him to get.
He did really low roll his speed.
He rolled his speed by now, but
super hard. Like, he was like 4 points of speed down, which is absurd.
But even
so, it's obviously not like replicable. Like, it's not going to be his general performance.
But even then, I think, like, let's say he got like decent speed. If he had maybe slightly lower than Geats.
Yeah.
That's me. That's not me being like that. That's probably me. Okay, that's probably me being still too harsh on him, but I don't want to be too generous because it depends on him getting those speed rolls. I don't think he still would have been that much better than, because he still just would have bad, defenses, and it would still be like a baby that we had to to just top up every now and then.
Yeah, and I think like the problems get sort of a bit compounded by his weird joining time. Like, he's not an early game unit.
No.
Unlike guys like Yi and Lin, who really helped us through those early chapters. He doesn't have Lin mode to help prop him up like units like Urk do. So he kind of needed to hit the ground running. Like, chapter 19 is just such a strange joining time. especially when you're like a few chapters away from joining at the same. You're like what, like 5 battles, like 4 because we're not doing a glimpse in time, away from joining like at the same time as Heath. Like,
I think the biggest thing really was, yeah, in terms of that, is that Heath felt like a godsend because this guy was such a fucking disappointment.
Especially because, like, by the time we got Heath, we were only just starting to realize how good Guy was, and that was our unit who we got before Dart. So it kind of felt like we hadn't gotten a unit in like quite a while outside of like our Lin mode guys, I guess, who returned to join us. Yeah, it kind of felt like we'd had a few bum picks in a row at that point, so like, yeah, it did help Heath, but I don't know, Dart just didn't perform.
I can't really recommend this guy in a normal context even anyway. Like, I just don't think it was worth it in this, and like, I know he was speed screwed, but like, just this experience alone made me like really dislike Dart in terms of just a unit for Hector Herd mode.
I don't know if he would have grown more if he wasn't speed screwed, and that's the big thing. Like, I'm not going to write him off completely, because like, if he was, you know, if he got speed when we expected him to get speed, would he have gained more EXP, so then he would have been a higher level, been even faster, stronger, bulkier, those things? Like, did this speed screw stop his development, rather than just, like, it's not just like his end result was he's 4 points of speed down, he's also a lower level than he would have been with those points of speed.
He's lucky that I think he had a decent HP pool. That's good, but
I think he's lucky that you were the one piloting the game, because if it was me, he would not have got those levels on the Geeks chapter. There is no world in which I would have kept him in Pirate for that. I would have gone, right, you Berserker, do something.
But like, so again, I don't think, even like if he got like those 4 points of speed, he still gets doubled by those Valkyries. He's not getting deployed for Hog. And yeah, I just completely just like a complete waste of points, really, in my opinion. And I feel bad because it was me who was trying to bat for him, but
I think we both kind of wanted him to be good, but like, for the point in time he joined, he needed to be better more immediately than he was. Like, he could have taken a chapter or two to build up, fair enough, you know. But he was just not really capable of doing much from when he joined. And again, if you're joining on like chapter, like in the mid game, you kind of need to be able to hold your own to a degree. Otherwise, you're just an Amelia. You're a Ewan. You're just kind of there.
You're a Jade.
But like, I think like the real kicker is that Dart was like 3 points.
Yeah.
I think. Like,
I don't remember who else was 3 points.
Well, Bartray was 2, and he would have helped us more in the early game than Dart did at any point in the game.
Was Vida like 3 points? I don't.
Vida was 3 points.
Yeah,
Pharrell was 3 points.
Yeah, we didn't get Corel.
Athos was only 4. Dorcas was 4.
Like, we could have had Vida, and just Victory Death would have been faster. Yeah, like, I don't see a world where he's not the worst, unless you like really want to like punish Elliewood for just not doing anything. But even then, like, he was deployed. Well, he was free, and in that case, like, yeah, being free just screws this guy. Like,
Elliewood did more before Dart joined than Dart did after he joined. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And Elliewood was still there and did the occasional thing like rescue drops and stuff during that period of time. In fact, there's probably an argument to be made that Elliewood did more after Dart joined than Dart did. The one thing is that Geats chapter where he stood in a bush and threw hand axes at things next to Geats, where he actually did do a reasonably okay job.
Yeah, that was his best chapter. That was his best chapter by far.
And that chapter was an attempt to grind him up.
Yeah.
Because I think in like a logical world, I mean, obviously we have to send Dart that way to recruit geeks, but we probably also send someone like Gee or, you know, someone like competent.
Yeah. It's kind of a sad note to end on, but we're not done.
We're not done. We've got one more unit to go. Where does Merlinus go?
I don't think he's not better than Lowen. Maybe he is.
He can't go B tier. He wasn't better than Kent and Rebecca, surely. I'm okay with that.
So there was chapter 14. He baits out some Pegasus Knights.
He does.
So Rebecca can kill them. Rebecca and our uninitiated Guy can kill them.
Yeah.
He chapter 15 he dies because
he died tanking a hit so that they didn't seize the throne or something, right?
Yeah. Chapter 16 he dies again. Chapter 17, I think he died in chapter 17. I don't remember. I think in chapter Port of Dawn he takes a he draws away a nomad, so we which is good. I don't remember if he died in pirate ship.
No,
I think he ate a hit on Dread Isle.
Dread Isle? He did when we were trying to recruit Fiora.
Yeah.
But I think we know what his real standout map was. His standout map was Genesis, right?
Yeah, he needed to be on Genesis. Like
him drawing those boltings over was vital to us beating that map.
Yeah.
If those boltings were hitting onto Hector or Guy or Sarah, we were screwed.
Yeah, there's like
to be fair though, that wasn't his only contribution.
No, it isn't. Like but like Genesis, like I think if you didn't have Genesis, him on Genesis, I don't know if it's. I think it's exponentially more difficult.
Yes, he genuinely was a huge difference maker on that map. I think the other big one is Pale of Darkness. Keeping that general busy whilst we waited for Harken to spawn. I think if we'd have lost Harken and got Corral instead, it wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Brave Sword
probably a
was
bit of a smaller contribution.
Brave Sword's kind of big.
Yeah, it was nice for sure, but like, you know, we definitely could have made use of a Wodow as well, for example.
Yeah, Wodow.
And there was potentially a world where we could have chosen Corral over Dart.
It's not. Corral's like weird because you're taking him over Harken, but he's also 3 points cheaper. He also has decent defenses, which is weird. He's a unit I would like to explore at some point, but it's also just annoying to use him.
Yeah, but before we get off of Merlinus, we have to talk about his true moment of glory, where he secured his kill on Tower of Black Winds to the Devil Axe Berserker who killed himself on Merlinus, which was a glorious moment, ending Merlinus with one win in all of his battles. A truly glorious sight to behold.
Merlinus never change. But
yeah, he helped a lot throughout the run.
Yeah. This is cool. This is crazy. I wasn't expecting Urk to be this low, but I honestly see it. I'm a little disappointed, and I wasn't even factoring the cost from the draft. So yeah, definitely do think that's inarguable. I'm glad we kind of agree.
Like, it really speaks as to how good Heath was that he was an 8-point unit who joined on chapter, like, a pretty late mid-game chapter, I would say. Like, start of the late game, late mid-game, chapter 22. And he's still easily our best unit.
He probably should have been 9 points.
But he doesn't have cost on his side. He doesn't have availability on his side. He just has the raw performance from when he joined.
Yeah, I don't think he's. I don't know if I want to make the hot take that he's like Milady, because he's not. Milady exists in a game where Marcus falls off. Marcus doesn't fall off as hard as he does in FE6, so. Yeah, obviously, I'm glad we agree on Lin. I was really surprised that you thought he was number 2 too, but I can see why.
He was just so good for his cost, and he was just... I think he was a combat unit that we really needed when we got him. Yeah, because until that point, we pretty much just had Heath. Lin and Guy could do bits, but we didn't have someone else who was a truly standout combat unit.
Well, it's like you don't have a unit that's using hand axes good. All our hand axe users sucked by the time Yeats joined. So
Kent, Lowen, Hector,
Dart.
Yeah, Dart. It wasn't great.
So yeah, and then yeah, my girls, my 5 points. Yeah, again, it's very fun run. I'm glad that's over. But
yeah,
a little sad.
Also a little bittersweet that it's over. Yeah, for sure. It was a fun one to go through. I used a lot of units who I've never really used before: Rebecca, Geets, Dart.
We did our
even Elliewood and Lynn to the extent that we did.
We did a bit of science, figure out like what is cool. Like there's some Lombo strats now that I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's cool to see Geets in action.
It was, and he sort of lived up to the hype of this like hard to unlock unit who's sort of locked behind some weird thresholds.
Yeah, it's better.
You probably won't see a lot. He was worth it. Like
it's
he
better
was
than
very
freaking Carla. So yeah.
But no, it was a very fun playthrough, and I'm glad we got through it. I'm glad we managed to beat it with the units that we drafted. We didn't have to go back and redraft or anything like that, which is nice.
Did we beat everything in like one take? Besides like the reset of Sands of Time for turn 1. We didn't like reset for anything on the last few chapters.
Oh, you mean like the last 2 chapters? No, we sailed through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sands of Time we got through. Yeah, Tower of Flat Winds. Yeah, we got through it all.
Yeah, all right. We can confirm that we're good at Fire Emblem.
We're good when all our units are good.
Yeah, because late game is what truly matters.
But yeah, it's been fun to go through all of the units and talk about how they performed. But I think we can wrap it up there.
I think we're going in circles like we did with the
rambled on
draft.
for long enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to thank you once again for taking part in this playthrough with me.
Oh yes, no, I can't. I'm privileged to be able to do this with you.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be the last one we do together.
Oh yeah.
We had a lot of fun with it.
Hint.
But yeah, no, thank you again for taking part in this with me. And yeah, it's a very fun playthrough. So that wraps up the video, and with it, the FE7 Buy Our Units co-op playthrough. I'd like to thank Teagan for joining me on this journey through the game. It honestly was a ton of fun, and I had a great time with it. I would also like to thank all of you for watching, and I hope you had as much fun doing that as we did playing it. Before we finish, I would like to once again thank everyone who supports over on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated and helps me out a lot, so thank you very much for that. I hope you've all enjoyed this playthrough, and I'll catch you all next time. Have a great day.